Hi, everybody. Happy Tuesday. Welcome to Synchronicity, the next level paranormal. And then I say the next level paranormal because we're not here to convince you that there are ghosts and Bigfoot and cryptids. We already know that. So we kind of start at that base level and go forward. Tonight, I have Renae Nagle with me. She's here to help us understand trauma through love and where it all began. She's going to take us all the way back and explain a lot of things for her. She's also going to be defining twin flames and soulmates as well as a lot of other stuff too. So we are running just a little bit behind tonight. So definitely we'll have Renae come on brought in. Hi, Renae.
Hello.
I'm so glad to see you. Boy, this Mercury retrograde's been definitely kicking butt, hasn't it?
My internet and laptop have been crazy since last Friday.
Oh my
And
goodness.
so I am now on my tiny iPhone, which is not making me happy, but it is what it is. It's all good, I guess.
Well, we're just glad that you're here. I actually drove past my own street today and I caught it and I'm like, oh, this is so Mercury retrograde. So at least we have something to blame it on. But I'm really excited to have you tonight. I'm really, really looking forward to having you take us, through trauma with love and taking us all the way back to where it all began.
Yes, and it's been a long, long time coming. So,
Yes.
where would you like me to start? The beginning?
Well, the very beginning, I think a lot of people
Okay.
may not be aware that Adam's first wife was not Eve. He had his first wife's name was Lilith, and I think that's a good place to start.
Okay. Well, just to kind of familiarize yourself a little bit about my work. My work has to do with treating trauma in all its many phases. And I've been doing this for over 33 years. So I've had a lot of experience. I started in the Army as an EMT, and then I have a bachelor's in science and health education. I have a master's in clinical social work and a PhD in metaphysics, and of course, specialties in hypnosis and EMDR. And so most of my work has been about trauma in one shape, form, or another. So when I'm talking about trauma, in today's world, I'm looking at the divine masculine and divine feminine energies of what the problem is between men and women, or, the sexes in general. And in today's world, with everything that's been going on, especially with the Me Too movement and what's going on with the Supreme Court regarding women's issues and how women are having to fight for their rights, I thought this was very timely. Plus, it coincides with my second book, which has everything to do with trauma and how to treat it through this consciousness of love energy. It's a higher paradigm. And so, if I'm looking at the beginning origins of the problems that have to do with the split with the energy between men and women, it goes all the way back to ancient days with Adam and Eve. Now, I'm sure everybody's heard about this story about Adam and Eve in the garden and what they think happened there. But I want to share maybe more of the truth of what really did happen that most people aren't aware of. Most people aren't aware of that Adam was married to Lilith. That was his first wife. And in those days, a woman was supposed to be subservient to her husband. But Lilith was not that person. She was a person who believed in equality between the sexes. She believed that men and women were equal. And with a creator energy, the creator energy is both the divine masculine and divine feminine. It's both God and goddess. God is not just one sex, it's two separate entities or energies that were split apart and put into two separate bodies or two different sexes. And in those days, Lilith decided she was going to be sexually free and open. And let's just say that the missionary position was the position of the time. And she decided, no, that wasn't for her. So she disobeyed her husband and she refused to be on the bottom, so to speak. And so he was angry with her. She defied him. So he divorced her and he abandoned her and made her feel ashamed of her sexuality and punished her. And the lore went that she was some kind of incubus or succubus, I should say. She was some kind of sorceress that charmed men, or a horror of that sort of thing, which was the furthest thing from the truth. But in those days, men were in power. They controlled the money, they controlled the woman's life. And so they decided to weave this web of lies about her. And that is the web of lies that has transcended through centuries, that has taken women from their position of equality, the divine feminine from the divine masculine. And all through these centuries has made us the bad guy, essentially. Women have been persecuted for centuries because of this lie, this story that was told because she disobeyed her husband.
You know,
Now,
in a lot of religions, I mean, she's not even recognized at all. I mean, most people don't even know that she exists.
well, it's just like Mary, who was Jesus's companion and his wife.
Mm-hmm. Mary
Look what they
Magdalene.
did. Look what they did with her.
Yes.
You know, it seems to be that, well, we women were put on a pedestal for men's pleasure, but then when they don't like something, they like to pull the rug out from under us. And what they don't realize is when they do that, they disempower themselves. And that is a karmic energy that turns around on them. And then they wonder why they have problems with their girlfriends, their wives, their significant others, because you're treating the goddess with disrespect. We are both divine masculine and divine feminine in energies, all of us, men and women. And when you disrespect the other, you disrespect yourself. And that's very important that I get this across, because this is what's going on right now in the planet. You see this everywhere you go. Women still being persecuted for being women. It's ridiculous. It's insane. It's the insanity. It's just has to stop. So part of my job as a therapist, when I'm working with couples, is to get them to see that no, your belief system here has been skewed by myths, truths, or lies, or stories that have been webbed since ancient times. It's time to wake up and get a new paradigm. The new paradigm is, okay, not duality, but it's this integration of love consciousness between the sexes so that we can work together as a collective instead of splitting each other apart. And as I weave through this whole process, with the many years that I've worked with couples in therapy sessions, the other thing that is very predominant here is vulnerability, emotional vulnerability in a relationship. And that stems from because the person has not done the work that's required internally, emotionally, on themselves, mind, body, and spirit, to be whole inside. When you're whole inside and you love and you value yourself, then you're going to love and value the other. And you're going to respect them for the person they are and not try to change them or control them or manipulate them, because that is all based on fear. It's not based in love. It's not based in a higher consciousness of love
That is so
energy.
true.
And I think it's very self-evident about what goes on. All you have to do is turn the television on and see what's playing out before your very eyes. I don't have to convince you of anything. It's right in front of your face. And if you want to stay in this duality and live in the illusion of the past, it's your choice. You were given free will. But why would you want to stay stuck in the past when you could have everything you've ever dreamed of if you would just open your eyes? I had a situation this week. I was supposed to be on another podcast with some person in the UK. And when he saw what I was talking about with Lilith, he went right into this old story about her being the temptress, the evil woman, okay, who
How could she be the temptress? There was only one man. I mean,
well,
so who is she going to tempt?
but the person that decided he didn't want me to have on his podcast, obviously he was ignorant. He didn't do his homework. He didn't do his research. He didn't even bother to talk to me about it. He just decided to shun me. Isn't that what they used to do in the olden days? They would shun women or stone you, right? For God forbid you opened your mouth or you did anything that was outside of the norm. Well, you know what? Those days are over. We are no longer living in that duality of that three-dimensional consciousness. We need to get it together and come into the present day, the fifth dimensional frequencies of the higher consciousness of love. When you stay stuck there, you prevent yourself from moving forward. You prevent yourself from being truly happy, not only within your own being, but with the person you most love and desire and cherish. Why would you choose to want to stay there? Because of some old belief system, some old paradigm. You know, we are our perceptions. We are what we think. Thoughts are things that we manifest. And if you want to stay stuck in those old paradigms, so be it. But your life isn't going to move forward. You're never going to have the desire, the things that you love, because you refuse to be open minded. And that person in the UK, he had no credentials. He was just some guy doing a podcast, questioning my credentials, okay, of 30 some years treating people with trauma, working through this subject matter,
Well,
having
maybe
the research to back it up. And I want to make sure, if that person is watching me, that he understands that karmically, okay, he's distributing lies and mistruths. And he really needs to get it together and do his homework.
okay. Well, can we talk about how trauma through love and where it all began?
Yeah, I'm going there now. So, if you're looking at a three-dimensional consciousness of duality and you want to transcend into a fifth dimensional consciousness, you really need to understand a few things. One of the first things you need to understand is that when you're born, you have what's called a divine blueprint. And if you look in your astrology chart, of which astrology is based on astronomy. If you do your homework and you research, you'll go back centuries and you'll see that astrology and astronomy were intertwined in those days. They used that from everything from studying the stars to medicine. It goes all the way back in time. So it is a science, but it's also been treated, okay, with mistruths over many centuries. So people don't really understand what it really is about. So when you're looking in your astrology chart at your original blueprint, that's your energy signature that you came into this lifetime. You have what's called your core self. And your core self, okay, talks about everything that you can manifest in your life, your strengths, your challenges, the people that will come in and out of your life, the situations that you may find yourself in. But it also shows what's called your Chiron wound. Chiron was a wounded healer in ancient mythology. Supposedly, he had two wounds that he could never heal, but he was able to heal other people's wounds, but never his own. So in your chart, wherever your Chiron wound lies in whatever house in the chart and whatever sign, that is your core wound that you've brought into this lifetime, into this incarnation, that you need to work to transcend, work through. Now, most people, when you get to age 50, if you're lucky enough to live that long, you'll go through another Chiron return. It's like a Saturn return in astrology. And if you have done the inner work, psychologically, emotionally, spiritually, where you have worked on your issues and you have moved through that Chiron wound, you shouldn't have to worry about that resurfacing. But if you have not worked on that core Chiron wound, you will have those issues resurfacing, coming back to review once again. Now, with Mercury in retrograde from last Friday through May the 14th, what also is happening is people are now reviewing their relationships, not just their business relationships, but their personal relationships. That's why people are ending their relationships or they're starting new ones, because those energies have now surfaced for you to reevaluate. Mercury doesn't actually stop and go backwards in a retrograde, but the energies certainly do make you stop and reflect and go back. So if you know where your core wound lies, your Chiron wound in your chart, that can give you a lot of information to help you to know what issues that you need to work through. And any really excellent astrologer who has experience should know what I'm talking about. So if you decide you want to do that, and get that information, that could be very helpful, especially now if things are falling apart in your life. If you're going through what I call a tower moment or a
Yes.
dark night or a dark night of the soul. A
Hmm.
tower moment is, sometimes that sounds really frightening to people. But I want you to understand something, that a tower moment isn't necessarily a bad thing. It can be the thing that wakes you up and says, hey, pay attention here. There's something going on that you are missing, and we're trying to help you. It's the universe's way of trying to give you a message. It's not necessarily a bad thing. If you feel like the rug's being pulled out from under you, it might actually be a blessing in disguise, because you've been too afraid or fearful or stuck to notice and recognize it and tackle it on your own. So the universe is just giving you a little bit of help to push you over the edge and say, time to jump out of the plane without a parachute, because now is the time. If you don't do it now, now is the time. And, most people, they don't like change. Why? Because they don't know what the unknown is going to bring. But what you don't realize in life is, it's the surprises in life that are so worthwhile. If you knew everything that was going to happen to you, it would be so boring, right? So jumping out of a plane is the best thing you could probably do for yourself. But people are afraid of these tower moments or the dark night of the soul, where they have to reflect and think, okay, so what am I missing here? What haven't I seen? What haven't I experienced or opened myself up to? And when you can realize that these are blessings and not a curse or something that's going to hold you back, then you can open your mind and allow the universe to bring you in something new. You never know when a gift is going to be presented to you. But if you're constantly afraid of taking a chance, or you're afraid of falling in love because you're afraid of getting your heart broken, you're missing out on all the beautiful things that life can offer you. And most people these days, with everything that's been going on the last 3 years, okay, with the pandemic, people are in fear. They want stability. They want to be able to lean on something that's real, to know that they're solid. But that's just the problem, you see, because it's an illusion. Stability comes from within yourself. It's the confidence and the spiritual part of you that knows that no matter what's happening around you, if you can see that the illusion is there to present you with a gift, instead of holding on so tight because you're afraid, because you can't predict what's going to happen, you're going to miss out. And there's no point of missing out. Why be here in a physical body if you're not going to take chances, if you're not going to risk things in life? There are no guarantees in life anyway. So because there's no guarantees, what are you holding on for? Why not just go for what you want? The worst thing can happen is it falls apart. Okay, we're going to be okay no matter what happens to us. People, human beings, are more resilient than they know, but they don't trust that about themselves because they're in fear. You can't live your life in fear. If you live your life in fear, you'll never walk out the front door. You'll never take a chance in love. You won't take a chance in a business where you wanted to do something your whole life because somebody told you you need to stay in a job where you're stuck because of the money.
Yes, and even being reared by their parents, a lot of times their parents, they'll say, "Oh, gee, I want to be a chef," and the parents want them to be a doctor. So they tell them, "No, you can't do that," or "Good luck with that," or they don't have money to send them to college. They don't find other ways. So yeah, it definitely um, affects people.
Well, and parents, okay, are your first role models.
Hmm.
So if you had parents that encouraged you as a child, okay, to follow your passion, your bliss, the thing that made you the most happiest, you're probably going to grow up to be an adult who takes chances and does risk, because your parents encouraged you that it was okay to follow your heart. And that's the other part of this whole process, where people are stuck in this duality. They're not following what's in their heart. How can you live a fulfilling life if you don't follow what's in your heart? You can be told by your parents, by society, by television, by movies, by anything, that you should do this or that because it's going to provide you with stability and money and security. Well, guess what? When you cross over to the other side, the first question they're going to ask you is, Did you live a life of happiness and joy? Did you serve? Did you help people? Were you kind? They don't ask you how much money you made. Were you a lawyer? Were you a doctor? Now, if you want to be a doctor and you want to save lives and that's your passion, by all means follow your heart, follow your bliss. But if you're going to continue to follow what you've been told and not follow your heart and always be in your head because you're worried about your stability, your money, okay, what people think of you, your reputation, you're never going to take a risk. You're always going to be in this mindset of duality. You're never going to look outside of the box and say, no, you know what? I think I'm going to follow my heart and follow what pleases me. Because when you do that, that's when you'll be the happiest.
Absolutely. Yes, that is so true. A lot of people, you know, in life, they're so busy, they're just on automatic pilot, you know, and they're not really even in touch with their feelings or their, you know, their energies and things like that, their energetic feelings.
Right. And so the other part of this piece that I think, is really important is explaining what twin flames are and what soulmates are. Because there's this whole thing on the internet. All you have to do is plug in soulmate or twin flame, and you'll get a multitude of stories or information what it really is. But primarily, it's the energy that you bring when you come from the other side, before you come into a life, before you come into a body, an incarnation. You can be on the other side for hundreds of years, maybe thousands of years before you decide to reincarnate. But just because you come into a body doesn't necessarily mean that your twin flame may be here in the physical sense. They may or may not have chosen to come in during this incarnation when you are in a body. And let me explain about how that kind of works. So, a twin flame can be a twin flame that mirrors who you are. In other words, you may not look exactly alike, but your psyche, your personality, your emotional part of who you are, your tenderness, your kindness, your passion is very much alike. And when you come into this lifetime and you meet somebody that is your exact mirror, it's going to feel like you've known that person before, almost like a moment of deja vu. Everything is going to feel familiar. It's going to feel like home to you. You're just going to know, and it's going to fall into place easier if that other person internally has done the work on themselves too. You'll attract that person to you and you will mirror back each other, but you both will have done the work. That's a true twin flame. But many people are experiencing what's called a false twin flame. That's somebody who comes in who actually you think is your twin flame. But the problem is they haven't done the work on themselves. They're toxic. They either have addictions to alcohol, sex, drugs, workaholism. They haven't internally grounded themselves spiritually. They don't really know who they are. They act out. They come in and out of your life. They love bomb you. This is what they actually do. I think this is what you're seeing a lot of people going through on the internet right now, especially during COVID, when people have had more time to be on the internet. So they're looking for love, right? Because they're trapped in their homes. So they're on their internet, they meet somebody. Guy sounds like he's great, woman sounds like she's wonderful. But the problem is they're inconsistent with their love and affection because they're toxic. And if they're abusive in any way, controlling, manipulative, they ask you for money, it's not a true twin flame. A true twin flame, all they want you to do is be yourself and trust them and know that they're here for you. They would never ask you for anything except being loving, kind, considerate, and your true self. And there's so much of that going on the planet right now that it's extremely disturbing. And it's bleeding through in people's lives in so many ways. And the problem is, if you don't understand the difference between a toxic twin flame and a true twin flame, then you're going to struggle and you're going to think there's something wrong with you. Why can't I attract a good person who wants a similar thing that I want, which is a happy life, no drama? Now, look, I'm not saying there aren't going to be challenges in relationships between twin flames. Of course there is, because life is challenging on this planet. This planet is a school. Let's just say it's a game board of life. And is it easy here? No. Are there challenges? God, yes. When you're with your twin flame, will you both be challenged? Yes. But the difference with a healthy twin flame and a toxic one is the healthy twin flame will do whatever it takes to work together as a team because they respect you, they love you, they honor you, they cherish you, and they're never going to treat you with disrespect or that you're anything less than a beautiful man or a beautiful woman. And part of that process goes into something I call emotional vulnerability. When a person can be vulnerable with you emotionally and express their whole true heart and self, it's because they're confident with who they are. They love themselves and they want you to see all of them. And they're not afraid to share that part with you. But when you're with somebody who can't express their vulnerable heart, their nature, they're not ready for you yet. They're going to cause you all kinds of heartache because they're going to come in and they're going to come out and you're going to chase them or they're going to chase you. And it's going to be tit for tat, cat and mouse, back and forth. You're going to be miserable. And if any of you out there have experienced this, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And we've all been through it. None of us, I think, who's been in a body hasn't either been treated like this by somebody in some way, shape, or form at some time. But if you know the triggers, if you know the red flags, if you know what to look out for, then when you start to feel the anxiety and the red flags in your gut, that tells you, no, this person's manipulative, controlling, they're treating me with disrespect. They're not coming from this higher consciousness of love paradigm. Why would you want to stay with that person? They don't deserve you. You deserve so much more. But if you don't feel worthy inside and you don't know that about yourself, then you're going to continue to allow people to treat you like that.
Yep.
And this is part of my work when I'm dealing with trauma, when I'm dealing with individual trauma or couples trauma. It doesn't matter. I can see how you're responding in your relationships by how you're allowing people to treat you. People will treat you with how you show them you want to be treated. If you don't have clear boundaries and good self esteem and you don't feel worthy, you're going to let people walk all over you like you're a doormat and you're going to be a victim once again. And why would you want to spend your life being a victim when you could be the queen or the king of your castle and your domain and attract somebody who actually deserves you, whether you're a man or a woman?
That's why it's
Now,
so important that people work on themselves before, even before they go looking for something like that. So,
absolutely.
yeah.
Now, a really good colleague and friend of mine, Dr. Michael Lynch, which you probably know very well, Lynn. Okay.
He's a
Okay.
dear man. Yes.
He's a very dear man who has done the work internally on himself. So when he speaks, I actually can listen to him because I know he's done the work. And he talks about men and women's brains being different,
They
which
are.
they are. Science, if you do your research, has proven that men and women's brains are different, but their hearts are similar. The brains are different, but their hearts are similar. And that means that when a woman is vulnerable, she has a tendency to want to talk to her girlfriends, right? Because when she talks to her girlfriends just listen to her. They don't try to fix anything.
Mm-hmm.
And then she can process it and move through it. Where a man wants to fix it for you, right?
Yes.
Because in his brain, right, he's got to be the man, he's got to fix things.
Mm-hmm.
But you'll notice if you try to talk to a man about his feelings What does he do?
He avoids talking about them, and a lot of that is the way that they're raised too. Boys
He
are expected not to
runs,
cry. Yeah,
he runs away.
that's true
Okay,
too.
because he's been taught through his socialization, whether it's society or his family, that he has to stuff his feelings
Mm-hmm.
because he can't be a true whole self, be the true man that he actually was born to be, because it's frowned upon. Okay, it's a sign of weakness to express your heart and your vulnerability. God forbid you do that and somebody sees that. Oh, when they take advantage of you. Do you know what a horrible thing that is to do to a male child? That's a horrible way to raise a child. Now, I know I'm going to have people out there going, how dare you talk to me like that? I raised my son with morals and values and integrity. Yes, thank you for doing that. But the problem is when you don't help your young man learn that it's okay to come from his heart and express his true nature, then you've done him a disservice. You've disempowered him. And then you raise him to be closed off with his vulnerable side, his emotional side. And it's in the vulnerability that people heal. Love heals, the heart heals. You can have all the academic knowledge and training and all the credentials behind you in the world, but it's love that heals, nothing else. Because the mind and the intellect will rationalize everything to degrees unheard of. But when you are coming from your heart center, as Jesus did, okay, or Mother Teresa, or Mahatma Gandhi, or Buddha, Princess Diana, many, many ascended masters that walk this planet, they will all tell you the same thing. To come from the heart is the only way to heal because that's the highest consciousness of love, of energy. The entire universe is made of this consciousness of energy. If you study anything, whether it's physics or astronomy or anything that has to do with energy, quantum physics, you will see that that energy is a wave form. They call it tachyon energy. It's a waveform. It's pervasive through space. It is there. It's a frequency of love. Everything in the universe that's based on creation came from this frequency, this wavelight of love. It permeates through the air, through space, through our cells, in our DNA. We all have this, I call this love frequency, but we have been taught, we've been conditioned, we've been brainwashed to not trust it, to ignore it. And I can tell you, there are more people who are in relationships based on what they think they should have done and married that person than on what their heart was telling them. There are so many prearranged marriages in the world, and I'm not, criticizing anybody's culture. I understand that many cultures they set people up for marriages when they're children at very young ages because they consider it a good match. But once again, okay, it's all based on what? Prestige, reputation, what society thinks should be done. It's not based in a love energy. Now, many people say, well, I've grown to love my husband. I've grown to love my wife. Well, yes, that can very well happen if you stay with somebody maybe long enough and you work on your relationship. But again, there are so many people where we know that that's just not the case, that they're very unhappy because they did what they thought that they were supposed to culturally. I'm not judging your culture. I'm not judging your religion. I'm just sharing information. Okay. Nobody is here to be blamed or shamed. But if you want to move forward and have a new way of living and get out of this duality of this consciousness of this split apart, as I call it, of the divine masculine and divine feminine, that's perfectly your choice. Stay where you're at. But if you're unhappy and you want something new, think about how you can expand your consciousness. Do some of the things that you need to do, the internal work to work on yourself. If you have childhood trauma, whether it's from abuse, child abuse, sexual abuse, okay, bullying, any kind of family relationships that have harmed you, go see someone, transmute and transcend the energy, transmute the trauma, deal with those issues so you can at least vibrate at a higher frequency and attract the love that you want. Now, most people think, well, I don't know if that's possible. Well, if you want love, my suggestion would be to do things that bring you love. Buy flowers, have roses in your house, go for walks in the nature, enjoy nature, surround yourself with the things you love, do things that you love, follow things that you love. Because when you do those things, you're raising your vibration into this frequency of love, and you'll attract that into your life. But you have to be love. You can't just sit there and go, oh man, I wish I could you send me my twin flame or my soulmate? I'm lonely. It doesn't work that way. You have to do the work on yourself, and then you have to vibrate in the vibration of love.
That
So
is
now I'm
so.
going to go. So now I'm going to go into. I'm sorry. What was
No, I
that?
was going to say that's so true. And also, you can kind of get yourself in physical condition too. I mean, if you want this gorgeous bodybuilder, then you may want to work on yourself a little bit that way too, so that you can be an equal.
Well, we are mind, body, and spirit.
Mm-hmm.
So the body is the temple to house the light of the love and the higher frequency. And if you value and respect yourself, then you will work on your body. However, if you have traumas like a sexual abuse trauma, or you've been in a domestic violence situation, you're not going to have a lot of that in yourself because you have so much trauma that you have to transmute or transcend.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to start where you need to start. So
Very true.
if you have this psychological disturbance, you need to start there and deal with whatever caused that traumatic issue that is affecting your psychology or your emotional issue. If you are physically maybe have a disability that maybe you can't, necessarily control. You could have Parkinson's, you could have Alzheimer's, you could have a dementia, then you have to also deal with where you're at, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to attract the love in your life, I'm not saying if you're disabled, you want to attract love because you're in a disabled body, but certainly maybe you need to learn to love the disability. So it's a matter of shifting your perception to shift the paradigm than to shift the frequency in the body. And then you can attract the love that you want into your life. Also, if you're looking at the difference between a twin flame and a soulmate can be anybody. That doesn't necessarily mean that's a love soulmate, but it can be. A soulmate could be your mother, your father, your daughter, your son. It could even be your business partner, right? A
Best friend.
soulmate,
Mm-hmm.
a soulmate, yeah, a soulmate is somebody that comes into your life, okay, to help you learn and grow. You help each other. You teach each other lessons. You know, you are you have their back. You're a good friend. You challenge them. You challenge them to be the best person they can be. They may not be in your life forever. They may only be there for certain circumstances, certain situations. They come and they go. And that's a part of life. It's change. But a twin flame will show up in your life when you're ready and not a moment before.
That is so true.
When you're ready. It can be when you're 13 years old or when you're 65. It doesn't really matter. Okay.
That is so true.
It doesn't really matter. And most people, when their twin flames arrive, okay, unless they're not paying attention, it's kind of like a bolt of lightning. It's electric. It's it's that spark, it's that divine spark, and it just feels right. And you just feel like you've known that person forever. They feel like home to you, and it's a wonderful feeling. And sometimes you might think it's too good to be true. You kind of want to pinch yourself, but I would make sure that you think about what you're thinking and what you're saying about that, because you don't want to not manifest that person to stay in your life because you think it's too good to be true. What I want you to say is, thank you for sending me this beautiful gift of this person. I honor them. I value you sending me this gift. I'm going to cherish them and care for them as I would myself. And that's how you nurture that relationship and keep it in your life. You don't start to criticize the person. You accept them for the person they are. You don't try to change them. If you're going to change anybody, work on yourself.
Yes.
Work on yourself. If you don't like something in the other person, it's usually a mirror reflecting back to you what is something inside of you that maybe you just haven't fixed yet or worked through or understood or accepted. And so these are all very easy things to see and recognize, but you have to be open and conscious to not only see these opportunities, these people that walk into your life, but then you have to be grateful and accept that they're there for a reason. You may not understand the reason in that moment. You may consider it fate or destiny, but it doesn't really matter what you call it. Just be grateful for it and enjoy it while you have it, because you never know in life when things are going to change.
It's true. Very true.
Appreciate every moment you have with that person. It's a blessing. And love is something to hold on to. It's not something to be afraid you're going to lose, because once you start thinking that you're going to lose it, then you set that energy out into the universe and you actually might manifest that too. And why would you do that when you can control that? So, part of this other issue with this whole process is understanding about energy. Energy doesn't die, it's just a waveform that changes its form or structure depending on where you focus your intention. Now, when you look through and you go back through physics, science, quantum physics, any physicist would tell you that wherever you focus your intention, you can actually change space and time, go forward or backward in time. NASA, if you go on the NASA site, there's information on there about this, or many other sites that you can find out. But what I found out when I was doing my work with hypnosis with my patients, and I was doing regression work, whether it was working on a relationship with a person that they were with a husband or a wife and they were having an issue. And so I would just regress them back to the last time or place that they had this issue with this person. Well, sometimes they would go back 800 years, 500 years, or the previous lifetime where they were with the person in a previous relationship. And so we would say, okay, what's happening here? And they would tell me. And then they would say, oh my God, now I understand why I'm having the problem in my current incarnation with my spouse, my significant other, because this happened at that time or place. And either I died, they died, there was some kind of a loss, there was some kind of a trauma. So then we fix the energy of the trauma in that time or place. And when you come back into the current incarnation, guess what? In that relationship, that issue is no longer a problem. Why? Because I was able to take them back to manipulate the energy in that time or place. And how do I know that's true? Because I've done hundreds of these sessions. I've seen it all the time play out the same way. And because I've done my research about energy and quantum physics and tachyons and how energy is, how that works, I could see, oh, I was just tapping in to this universal energy, this higher form of consciousness that is everywhere in the universe. I was listening to something the other day to somebody who was talking about how energy actually travels through space and time. It isn't in space. He said it travels through space, which means it can be manipulated forwards and backwards, forwards and backwards. So if you take that principle quantumly, quantum physics, and you are using that in hypnosis, all I'm doing is working in that energy field, that wavelength. And I'm just taking that person and manipulating that consciousness and changing that energy. And people say, oh, well, that can't be. Oh, yes, it can, because the evidence is in the relationship when the person comes back and they're working in their counseling sessions with their partner. Or even if I don't see both people in a couple session, the person reports back to me her relationship or his relationship with his spouse or partner has significantly improved. And the spouse never came to one of my counseling sessions. So what do you call that? So that's how powerful energy is. And people need to understand that wherever you focus here, your thoughts, you are going to manifest that in your life. So why not focus on higher consciousness, on this love, what you truly desire and what you want to manifest? I don't care what it is in your life, whether it's your music or medicine or whatever that you love doing, focus on that. That's what you're going to attract energetically. But if you don't understand that you have the power to do that, that you have the power to manipulate energy to manifest things, you're just going to buy into everything you see filtering around you and believe what you see on television or society or what you've been brainwashed, okay, to believe. I want people to understand something about hypnosis. Hypnosis has been given a very negative connotation forever because of the things that have been communicated, the lies about it. But if you understand that hypnosis is based on energy and quantum physics, and that you can manipulate it in any given time, then you'll understand it's science. It's based in science. It's based in physics. It has nothing to do with woo woo or or evil or the devil, okay?
Yes.
Which is what people have wanted you to believe. Most of my work, my entire life, I've been a skeptic. I do my research. I don't only do my therapy and sessions to prove things and help people. I do my research. I investigate. I study physics, science, metaphysics, astronomy, astrology, numerology, mathematics, music, everything, because everything has something to teach us about ourselves. And when you have a closed mind and you just listen to Fox News, okay, or any of the channels that want you to believe what they're saying, understand that those people are selling you something. They're selling you a belief system and hoping that you believe what they're saying. But as you can see, as of late this week, several people have been let go from those shows. And why? Because they're distributing misinformation. They haven't checked their facts. Okay. If you're a true journalist, you're going to check your facts. If you're somebody like me who is a psychotherapist, a book author, okay, somebody who's trying to help people, do you think I'm actually going to give you information that I haven't researched all on my own or proven myself? Do you think I'm just going to spew information to you just for the sake of spewing information? My whole life has been about empowering people. And the only way I can do that is by presenting truth. And truth can change in any given moment. When you buy into these old paradigms of duality, you're never going to open yourself up to new truths. And truth changes in each moment. That's why I was so adamant this evening about presenting the truth about Lilith and how that was a lie.
And
And just what you see what's going on right now in the consciousness, in the global consciousness. Do you think that it's right for women to have to be in the streets trying to win back their God-given rights of being authentic, integrity, in their freedom, in their sovereignty? Do you think that we should have to fight again for being the God and goddesses that we were meant to be? The divine feminine, the divine masculine energies. It's not right. And somebody needs to stand up and say, no, 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 no. This is not going to happen again. If we allow the duality, the people who are in power and want to control us to do this, then we are disempowering ourselves. And all the progress through millennia that we have made as a species, as a society, will suffer. You know, women, we carry children for 9 months inside of our bodies that are sacred. Our bodies are temples of love and light. Women are sacred. We are being disrespected all over the world. And when a man disrespects a woman, he disrespects his sacred self. A man needs to understand he's harming himself when he does this. You are not valuing and loving your authentic self when you disrespect a woman.
Yep. And we are coming up to the top of the hour at 10 o'clock. We're going to be breaking for a commercial, and then we will be back to talk more about the divine masculine and feminine with Renae, Dr. Renae Nagle.
Thank you.
5-minute break. Hi, everybody. We are back to the second half of the show. First of all, I want to thank everybody for being here. And please definitely, if you're enjoying this, give us a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe. And we are here with Dr. Renae Nagle, and we are just getting ready to start going into a little bit more about the divine masculine and divine feminine. And here is Renae.
Hello, we're back.
Yay, we're back.
Did everybody have a nice little break?
Yes, I had my little cup of hot tea over here, that's for sure.
That's good.
Oh, and also I wanted to make mention too, if anybody has questions at the, we'll kind of wait till we get a little bit more towards the end, because a lot of the things that Renae's talking about, some of the things she may answer your questions before you even get a chance to ask them. So when we, as we get more towards the end, we'll take a few questions as well.
So if you indulge me, I'm going to read something that Albert Einstein wrote.
Okay.
He said, "We cannot solve our problems with the same thinking we use to create them." And this was very much the golden rule, according to Einstein. And, you know, he was a pretty brilliant person, but he was also a very spiritual person. And he knew that to live a full, whole life, it wasn't just based on science, what was in your thoughts. It was based on love, because he believed in the beauty of creation. He believed in there was a purpose for everything. And he was a man that had an open mind. Now, many of his paradigms have been proven to be a little different at this point in time, but he was always open to new thinking. And just by that statement, by that quote of his, it just leads me to say that if you want change in your life, then think about what he said.
Be the change that you want to see.
Mm-hmm. And as you know, yes, and as you know, in life, every day something's different. Nothing stays the same. You know, even the Dalai Lama wrote about impermanence. And he said, the more you hold on to something, right, the more painful it is when you lose it. And he wrote many, many books on many different topics. But impermanence is something that people are the most afraid of, because they want to know everything so they can feel safe and secure. But what they don't understand is that the more open you are and the more information that you allow to come in, the freer you're going to be to love not only yourself, but be in a healthy relationship and integrate the divine masculine and the divine feminine energies. Those energies came from a soul source. We weren't always split apart into two different bodies and two different sexes. You know, initially we came from source, which was a whole unit. But to have these experiences, to procreate on this planet, we were split into two different sexes. Makes sense, right? It's logical, it's science, but it's also love. Because when you're attracted to somebody energetically, sexually, okay, you know, if you're a smart person, being an intellectual person, intelligence is a very sexy thing. It's not just a part of your outward experience, it's your inward, interior experience of who you are. And so you can attract somebody for many different reasons. And when you're doing that, okay, yeah, and when you're doing that, you may not even understand why you're attracted to somebody, but that attraction is biological so that you procreate and continue on with the species. So you may start out being attracted to somebody in a physical sense, but when you get to know the person intellectually, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, that's where the true connection lies. And when you're with somebody in a physically intimate way, you are connecting your two selves, your chakras, your energy centers, and you're having this spiritual experience where you're reuniting with the Godhead and the goddess. Most people don't even understand that that's what's really happening. You think when you're having an orgasm, right, it's great and all that, but it's a spiritual experience. It's to be cherished. It's to be, enjoyed for the beauty of it, what that is. There's no higher gift that you can be given while you're in a body. It's not just about sex and having an orgasm and going on to the next person and the next conquest. When a person has a sexual addiction and they go from one person to the next person to the next person, that is a very toxic way to live, because you are not connecting with that person on the highest spiritual level of that gift. You're just having sex, and it's an empty place. And that's why you keep going from next flower to the next flower to the next flower, right?
That's so
Because
true.
you're searching unconsciously for this nirvana, this heaven, this spiritual gift. But consciously, you don't even know why you're doing it. It's a subconscious thing. And so, of course, you're disappointed, right? Because that person isn't providing you with what you need. Well, how do you even know what that is? You're so far removed from your spiritual center. You need to go back and do the work on yourself. Go back and integrate whatever the traumas are. Go back and learn to love yourself. If you've been abandoned in childhood, if your parents weren't loving to each other, if they divorced each other, if there were affairs, do you know that's all trauma to you? That stamped your energy field and your body, your psyche. So, of course, when you're in a relationship with somebody, it's never going to be right, because you're carrying your parents' emotional energy stamps. That's what I wrote about in my first book. I expanded upon it in my second book that will be coming out sometime in May.
Woo!
Yes, finally. But those energy stamps come from those experiences, and you think that they're yours, but they're not. They were stamped on your energy field from the people who you were your role models, that you were in their energy all the time. It's not even your stuff, and you don't even know that it's not your stuff. So you subconsciously go out and you drink and you do drugs and you have sex, and you keep going same circle over and over, and you wonder why you're unhappy, and you wonder why things don't feel right, because you keep circulating traumatic energies that are in your energy field. And energy doesn't die, it just changes form. So, when you meet somebody and the person that you're attracted to leaves you, okay, you have to ask yourself, why did they leave me? What was it that they left me for? And you don't have to blame yourself. Just look at your past. Whenever I do a psychological assessment of a client, I go back generations. I go back 2-3 generations on the paternal and the maternal side of your family. I ask questions like, were there drugs? Were there alcohol? Was there incest? Was there infidelity? Okay. Were people abused? Because those energies go through families, and they go from one generation to the next generation to the next generation. And then when it's your turn to be born into that family dynamic, okay, you are carrying all your ancestral trauma within your family unit, within your own energy field, because your parents have brought that with them because they didn't deal with their trauma. Now, if you've been lucky to have been raised in a family where you had two loving parents who actually worked through their issues together, didn't abuse each other, took responsibility for their own issues, and they were able to grow together, then they were able to show you role modeling that you could see that, I think I could stay with somebody and work things through when the times get tough. And they will, because you will have challenges. But if you didn't have those people to role model those energies for you, where were you going to learn it?
Very
On,
true.
on television, the Brady Bunch, I guess, right?
Yeah. Leave it to
Okay.
Beaver.
Leave
My
it to
time.
Beaver. Okay. And so because you have to learn it from somewhere, right? And when you come into a body, you come in as a pure soul. And yes, you may be bringing past life issues with you that will surface at a later date, but you basically come in as a pure soul, ready to have a new experience.
Mm-hmm.
But if your experiences are of abandonment and mistrust, okay, infidelity, that trauma, you'll carry that with you in your very being, and you'll continue to manifest that in your relationships over and over
So
again.
true.
And you won't even realize you're doing it on a conscious level. But when your relationships continue to fail, or you keep attracting the same kind of person into your life, it's because maybe you haven't done the work. Now, when you do the work, it's like an onion skin. You peel off one layer, then there's another layer, and then there's another layer, right? That's just kind of how it works. And if you're constantly doing this on your own, right,
Mm-hmm.
it could take 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years. Do you
You may
really
not.
want to wait? Do you really want to waste all your valuable, precious time in a body? Okay.
Yeah. You may not even get it at all because by the time you pass away, you might have to come into another life and do it again.
Well, that's usually what happens.
Yeah.
Because when you leave each lifetime, you are still carrying the energy of unresolved issues and trauma into the next lifetime. And you will manifest that in the next lifetime because you didn't finish it or work on it in the previous lifetime. It's not that you're being punished, it's just that energy just doesn't die. It changes, it shifts its form into another body. So it's kind of like the soul doesn't die. It's a learning process, right? That's why we keep coming back lifetime after lifetime after lifetime, whether it's in this universe or another galactic universe. It doesn't really matter. It's just the natural progression and evolution of the soul. It wants to learn, it's on a path of learning. But the path of learning is always about coming into a higher vibration of love, to reunite with this God, goddess head, this singularity, this energy of oneness, of love. So, as you're working through your traumatic issues in this lifetime, if you have information and you understand that you can transcend these past experiences, these traumatic energies, if you have information that you know where you can go to take care of those things, then why would you not do that? Why would you not take those gifts, those opportunities to experience the fullest frequency of love that you could have while you're in a body? That
Absolutely.
just makes sense. It just makes sense, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. And most people are afraid to love because they've been hurt in the past in relationships. And so they've told themselves, well, I just can't trust love because see what it does to you? It splits you apart. It tears you in two. It breaks your heart
Isn't that the first thing somebody says when you're
Yes.
in a relationship to the other person? They say, please don't break my heart.
Mm-hmm.
Because their heart has been broken before. And they
Yes.
don't want to experience that kind of pain. But I want you to understand something about that. Even that broken heart was a lesson for your soul to evolve and to trust that love doesn't have to hurt you if you've learned something from it. There is this song, it's called Stronger in the Broken Places, and you can look it up on the internet. It's probably the most beautifully played and lyrically written song about having this experience of a broken heart. But because of the broken heart, the person has come out stronger because of it, because it taught them something about themselves. When you give of yourself, most people, especially women, we give 150%. We give all of ourselves. We jump in without the parachute before we have learned to trust the relationship. Moving too fast because we want the romance. We want the fairy tale. We don't get to know the person. I think that during this pandemic, one of the biggest blessings has been online relationships, because it's been like in the old days when we didn't have iPhones and the internet. What did we have to do in a relationship to get to know someone? You either took them out on a date and got to know them in person over several dates over several weeks. Usually it was supervised by a parent, or we wrote letters to get to know somebody very well before you slept with them and had sex, and intertwined your energy centers and got yourself all discombobulated in a relationship that maybe wasn't healthy, right? Because you didn't give yourself the time to get to know somebody.
You're talking about this, and this is also something that I've written about in my book, The Gap, that you need to have the time to make that hard investment first before you, go with the rest of it.
When I look at certain celebrities,
Mm-hmm.
let's just say I'll use John Bon Jovi for an example. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
He's known his wife since they were teenagers, right?
Mm-hmm.
They were able to have a relationship over a long period of time and got to know each other and became friends and learned to respect each other. And that developed into a romantic relationship. And they're still together. Now, I'm not saying that they haven't had their ups and downs. It's hard to be with a celebrity, right? Who's gorgeous, sexy, talented,
And
travels all over the planet, right?
everybody
Okay.
wants, yeah.
Everybody wants him, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the man is faithful to his wife, isn't he?
Yes.
And why? Because his bond with her has been formed on such a deep level. There's so much trust there and loyalty that doesn't happen these days, right? Because everybody's so quick to have sex because of the attraction.
That's so
And then they wonder why the relationship fell apart, why they got ghosted, why the person abandoned them. Well, did you really know the person before you slept with them? Were you really honoring the divine feminine or the divine masculine? Was there true respect there? I'm asking people these questions because most people don't ask these things before you get involved in a relationship with somebody.
Yeah, most of them don't even ask if about STDs in this day and age either, and that's very important too.
I mean, understand that every person that you have slept with, right,
Mm-hmm.
the new person that you're sleeping with has slept with them too. Because, your energies are mingling and you don't even know anything about that person. And then you wonder why you end up with something that is a medical issue. And I'm not sitting here in judgment of anyone's sex life, but I'm speaking to you from a perspective of experience, not just in my own personal life, but with the work that I've done over many years and many lifetimes, I have to say, that if you want something that's healthy and you want to honor the divine masculine and feminine within yourself, you must look back at your history, your father's side of the family, your mother's side of the family. Ask questions of your grandparents. Ask them to be honest with you, if at all possible. Okay. If you can't get answers from them, go see a reputable psychic. I guarantee you, there are a lot of good readers out there who will pick up on the energy from your loved ones who've crossed over to the other side. So you can get information if you really choose to want it. And then when you find out things, then take it seriously and do the work that you need to heal your ancestral trauma. Most people don't understand that. You bring the energy into your current incarnation from your ancestors. And so you need to look at those things too. I know this may sound like it's a lot of work, but if you just start one step at a time, just one step, take the first step to getting more information about your past history, it will be invaluable. Whenever I'm doing a psychology assessment, I am doing your family history back several generations because that tells me so much. I'm doing your astrology that tells me about your core self, your Chiron wound. Okay. I'm not just doing evidence-based psychology, of which I am very clinically, am sound. I'm pulling from all avenues to get as much information to assist you as I possibly can, because I know that information will empower you to work through these issues and to integrate these parts of your divine masculine and divine feminine energies. And when you can do that, you will attract the person that was meant for you. As long as they're in a physical body, you will attract them. So I don't know if you have any other questions that you might want to ask, Lynn, but I think I've covered pretty much most of the topic area.
I mean, you've said so many good things that that I'm sure, and I'm looking at the chat here. Everybody's they're agreeing with you too, that those things are important. And they talk about that you bury your parents. So it is important that you do heal those wounds, because maybe your current situation was not healthy. So everything that Renae is saying is so very important, because you'll just carry it from lifetime to lifetime and not understand, what's going on and why you're having these problems. And also to love it, to love yourself enough first that you respect yourself enough to also expect other people to respect you. So that's important as well, and make the changes, and as I said, be the change that you want to see. So it's so very, very important. Does anybody have any questions for Dr. Renae that they would like to ask? Let me really quick. Let's see here. No, most all of the comments are totally in agreement with what you're saying, and it's true. Joshua had mentioned here, intimacy doesn't always have to procreate, and that's true. And some of the energy that I think Renae's referencing here is the intimacy, the true intimacy, that connection, that energetic connection that you have, and you don't have intimacy with someone. You just have met them and you've gone to sleep with them. And a lot of times too, even with women, they equate sex with love, and they think that sex is love. Sex is not love. They're two completely different things. So absolutely. And I'm just looking here too. Let's see. Did you want to talk a little bit more about Lilith? You had mentioned some things about, you were telling us how, she'd exited and how all of that took place.
Well, I think as it relates to the topic area, okay, of the divine masculine and feminine, in ancient days, the way societies were set up was based on women are in the home, cooking, taking care of the children, doing domesticated chores. Where men were the farmers, the carpenters, the politicians, even in those days,
The protectors.
the protectors. And that's kind of how things were set up. But back in the very beginning, when you're in the Garden of Eden, those things were not set up that way because it was like being in nirvana. It was like heaven on earth.
That's right.
Okay. We didn't have this struggle for survival because everything was provided. There wasn't this, I have to, go out and slay the woolly mammoth so I could come home and my wife could make a fur coat and feed the children in the cave, so to speak, right? It was the Garden of Eden. Everything was provided. And it was two people who were supposed to love and honor each other. And part of the sexual integration of the energy was for those two people to be able to be their true, authentic self. And for a woman to be her true, authentic self, it's perfectly natural for her to have sexual urges and want to try different positions and to be assertive in her lovemaking. But if your husband only wants you to provide him with sex in a certain way to satisfy his own needs, and you disobey him, you're going to have disharmony in your relationship. And it's going to upset that apple cart because she knows that she is the goddess. She's the divine feminine. She should be honored and cherished for her whole true self. And he disrespected her when he treated her that way. And she knew who she was, and she was not going to tolerate that kind of disrespect. And I admire her for having the courage and the fortitude to stand up for herself. And if he was any kind of consistent, compassionate, gentle, caring man, he would have honored that in her and worked with her instead of making her feel like she did something wrong and punishing her and chastising her and basically divorcing her and throwing her out among the wolves to fend for herself.
And then he ends up with Eve, who ends up having him take a bite of the apple, and then look at all the problems that came with it too,
Well, and if that's true, if that story is true, okay, then what was her issue? How did she get him to succumb to biting that apple? Was she the real sorcerer?
You never know.
That is my question, right? Because let's think about that, right? The first wife, she was her true self. She was honest. She was in her integrity. She was authentic. She was the divine feminine. She was the divine feminine, honoring herself, and was dishonored by the divine masculine. So what did he then get next? He got second best because she had him take a bite of the apple. If she was really his wife, his companion, who honored him, why would she do that? It's illogical, said Spock. It doesn't make sense. Okay. It's illogical. Excuse me with my Vulcan brain, right? It wouldn't have made sense. So why wasn't she chastised or thrown out or criticized or had these lies told about her? Why? Because the man didn't want to take responsibility for his part in the action. Call me a fool, but logically, if he was any kind of a man, he would have said, you know what? I'm assuming responsibility here for my part in this debacle, in this fiasco. I'm going to accept responsibility. Had he done that, I wonder, would the creator that created us in that moment, would the creator have said, okay, I'm giving you two a second chance?
Mm-hmm.
If he just would have taken responsibility, instead of blaming her and making Lilith the bad guy, or not taking responsibility for biting the apple and blaming Eve. I mean, if you look at things throughout time, who gets blamed all the time? It's always the woman. In a family dynamic, when I'm in a couples counseling session or a counseling session with a child who is acting out a behavior that might be negative, do you think that child's acting out because they're a bad child?
No.
No. They're acting out because it's a symptom of something that's wrong in the marriage and the relationship between the two adults. Always, 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 always. So why? Because one or two people don't want to take responsibility for their part in the discontent, in the disrespect, in the lack of compassion, love, and understanding in the relationship. So of course the child is going to be the scapegoat, and that's who I'm going to see in counseling. Invariably, I end up pulling in the adults, and then I see who's willing to take responsibility and who isn't, because it's not the child's fault. You're the adults. Take responsibility and deal with your issues. So if I'm going back and looking at the origin story of Lilith and Adam and Eve, I'm looking at it from a whole different perspective, a whole new paradigm that I don't think anybody has even considered ever.
No, that's true. Something else that I wanted to ask you about, you were talking about the wound and the Chiron, and I know that you had mentioned mine, for instance. Mine is in betrayal. What is the placement of some of the other ones that people?
Okay. So to break it down in astrology is a wheel. It's
Mhm.
divided into 12 houses, okay, like spokes in a wheel. And in each house, there's a sign: Capricorn, Sagittarius, Gemini, Taurus, Scorpio, Virgo, uh,
Pisces,
Pisces. Excuse me, I'm having a brain thing.
Aquarius,
Aquarius,
Aries,
Aries, and Leo,
and Cancer,
and Cancer.
and Scorpio.
12 signs. 12 signs. Now, depending on the house placement, whether it's the first is the ascendant, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth. There's 12 houses. Depending on the placement of the houses that the sign is in, where your wound is in, that's your issue. And you could go online and ask, what is the Chiron wound for my astrology? So you could get a free astrology chart, by the way. If you go on michelleknight.com, she's a astrologer from the UK. Not only does she do individual free astrology charts, but she does couples compatibility charts or synastry charts. And it can show you a lot about your relationship between you and your partner, or just your own individual chart. But she also has readers who'll do readings for you too, by the way.
Oh,
But
wow.
she can read. Yeah, she does. And she's actually very good. And they can read your chart. So depending on where the Chiron wound is in the house with the sign, that is your Chiron wound. And if you haven't worked through that issue to a sense of resolution, by the time you're 50 years old, it will resurface again and it will continue to cause issues and problems and challenges in your life and in your relationships. So I would say that's probably a good thing to invest, to look into. And, astrology is not expensive. If you want to have somebody do a professional chart and go through that with you, it's not expensive. It's worth the investment. I mean, anything that is a roadmap about your original blueprint, your divine blueprint that you came into in a lifetime, that's really what your astrology chart is. It's your life plan that you planned on the other side with your council of elders before you came into the current incarnation. And so it's very important to know where your core wound is so you can deal with your issue. Because
Absolutely.
I guarantee you, if you do that, you'll figure it out and you'll go, oh my God, I've been dealing with this for 35, 40 years when I could have dealt with it 20 years ago.
Yeah, it's like a light bulb almost goes on. When I found out mine, I'm like, ding, ding. Oh, well, no wonder. And I mean, it was correct. It was
And
absolutely.
it makes sense. I had somebody say to me, oh, you worked at Loyola. I worked at Loyola University in Chicago many years ago, and I worked in psychiatry. And I was always doing people's astrology charts. You need the name, the date of birth, the time you were born, the town, city, state, country. And if you know the time, that would be helpful because it's specific to your latitude and your longitude, which is based on astronomy. See, astrology and astronomy was similar in the past. That's how they worked through the cycles of planting. That's how they worked with medicine. And it's a science. So if you can utilize that to help you, why wouldn't you utilize everything that's available to you?
That's true. What about people that don't know their birth time? What would be a time that they could use?
Okay, so most astrologers will tell you that they will use 12 noon. And then they'll get as close as they can. But it's pretty close. You can still see where your Chiron wound is because in your astrology, in each house, okay, it has a number of degrees from like 1 to 29 degrees. And so wherever those degrees are in your house, it will show what is happening with that Chiron wound. Now, the interesting thing about astrology is if you know where your midheaven is, the north node versus your south node, the south node usually will tell you where your past was. And it could be past life that you brought into this current incarnation. Isn't that fascinating? And
Yes,
your north node can tell you where you're going into your future. And it's a wonderful thing, astrology. It's the most interesting, exciting, fascinating thing that you could ever learn about yourself. And when you read these newspaper or online astrology things about you, understand that that's a general reading. It's not specific to your exact date of birth and latitude and longitude in the sky, exact time that you were born. And nobody has that time except you. Even if you were a twin, twins are still born, can still be born even at 1 second apart, and they'll be same but different
yeah.
because you each will have a unique signature. Just like a musician who plays a guitar, as an example, has his own unique signature. When you listen to them, you just know who that is, right? Same thing with your birth chart. You have your own unique, original blueprint or energy signature that you carry with you through that entire lifetime. So if you can find out what your Chiron wound is, you can restore, rebalance that energy signature So you can be vibrating in that higher frequency and just have a happier life and attract the things that you want, providing that you have been dealing with your childhood traumas and your ancestral traumas that have stamped your energy field. So I hope I've answered those questions for you, Lynn.
Yes, you have. I wanted to make mention to you your book that's going to be coming out in May. You've gone over that those. Let's see. And book. Your first book. You might want to give people the name of that. I think that we have a picture of that on the file at the producer.
Okay.
The book. This is.
So in 2011,
Mm-hmm.
my guides were very adamant that I write this first book. And they were very adamant about the length of the title. And I argued with them and I said, really? And they said, yes, just write the book, put the information in there, and this is the title. Healing Emotional Energy Stamps Through the 7 Mirrors of Relationships and Medical Astronomy. And I published that in 2012. And it is full of everything from psychology to immunology, biology, quantum physics, psychic abilities, metaphysics, goes on and on and on. And it's full of many energy diagrams to explain energy. And then the second book is going to be very simple because my guides told me to keep it simple. They said, keep it spiritually simple. Actually, they said, keep it simple spiritually. But my colleague and friend, Dr. Mike, said, keep it spiritually simple. So I changed it because he was right. And this book is more like a very quick and easy, understandable book that'll probably take you maybe, 2 hours, 3 hours at most to read in one sitting. It's easy to understand. It talks about energy, how it works. It talks about the Chiron wound, how astrology works with the Chiron wound. It goes into the divine masculine and feminine energies, but a little bit more detail. And it's called EMDR Therapy to Transmute Trauma. Hold on. Through Love, a New Energy Consciousness Paradigm. Yes, I know it's another long title, but when my guides tell me to do something, I've learned that I must listen to them because they're usually right. Because the information they have is a little bit, let's just say, more recent than I may be available to at the moment. However, we do work together. They do give me a lot of information, which I'm very grateful for. This book should probably be out on Amazon, I want to say sometime in May. Keeping my fingers crossed. We're working on it. And other than that, I think that's pretty much it for this evening, unless there are any other questions.
Okay. Anybody have any questions? I'm looking at the chat here. Everybody's commenting in agreement with you. I don't see, let me see here.
So you know what that tells me?
Did you answer?
That tells me that not only that I may have answered their questions, but intuitively on an energetic level, people know what feels right, what is authentic, what is truthful for them. And this is why I'm telling you, people know what they need. They know what's true. They know what's right. They know what's honest.
Mm-hmm. That's
People
true.
people come here with all the abilities that the God and Goddess gave us. We have all these intuitive abilities, but we just don't trust them. And on an internal level, on a gut level, people know what feels right and rings true to them because it vibrates within every fiber of their being. And that's how you know something is right for you.
That's very true. Do you want to mention to anybody how they can get in touch with you if they, for instance, would like your services that you do helping people?
Okay. They can feel free to contact me through either Facebook, just message me, friend me, okay, and I will get back to you. If I give out my phone or my email, I will get bombarded.
Yes, that is absolutely
Okay.
true.
And most people have internet services. So if you Facebook me, just don't leave me like your entire history. Okay. Just leave me a brief few sentences about maybe what it is that's going on with you, how you feel that I might be able to help them, and then leave me a way to get a hold of you. I'll DM you. Okay.
Mhm.
But I won't respond to people who are fraudsters or con people
Of course.
or who are trying to hit me up for a date.
Oh, let's not go there. Yeah, some of the pictures I get are interesting.
Listen, I'm just saying this because when you're in the public eye, okay, people think that because you're a loving, kind soul and do the kind of work that I do, that you're an easy target. But I just want to say that I see through things so quickly. I can see BS 1,000 miles away these days.
There you go.
Okay.
Well,
So if you're struggling and you need my assistance, I'm happy to help you. But if you're inauthentic and you're not coming from your integrity, please do not bother because I will not respond. I will see through it.
absolutely. And then goes with me as well. And anybody that wants to get in touch with me, of course, we're going to be here Tuesday, 9 o'clock Central Time every Tuesday. I'm also on Journey Through the Gate Paranormal Podcast with Cisco Murdoch on the last Sunday of every month. I have other things that I'm doing scheduled on my Lynn Monet page as well as my Omnipresent page. As far as this show, Synchronicity, the next level, we've got next week we have coming up a Cat Ward is our guest. On the 9th, we have Adia Severini, and then we have Three Beards after that on the 16th. And of course, Dr. Jerry Marzinski is going to be with us on the 23rd of May, and Greg Koss, who's in the audience, is going to be my guest on May 30th. So please feel free to look ahead at the schedule that's on there. It shows on the intro and the exit of the show. We want to thank Dr. Renae Nagle for being our guest tonight. Always amazing, always a pleasure, and so much information to share to help all of us grow and be better.
Thank you.
Yeah. So with that being said, I think we're going to close down tonight and call it a night. Have a good sleep, everybody.
Thank you, Lynn.
Yeah. Good. Thank you. Thank you, Renae.
You're welcome.